others 18, 18, 19. Okay, all of you have got your hand out, right, for today's discussion. Okay, so today we're going to discuss about um, the effectiveness of the policies. Okay, so since we having based on our discussions, we are focusing on the monetary economics. So here we are actually maybe skewed, maybe to see how monetary policy is effective. Okay, the arguments, the conditions. Okay, and also we also want to know under what conditions that okay monetary policy become paralyzed. Okay. Okay, so we know that generally we have two policy, okay, monetary policy and fiscal policy. So fiscal policy is only two tools, okay, government expenditure and taxations. And then monetary policy, okay, also the key tools in monetary policy is stock of money and interest rate, okay. And then uh, the debate, okay, the debate between the effectiveness in terms of the implementations of this policy is coming from the Keynes and monetaries. Okay, so but basically, if you read, okay, so monetaries economics and classical economics, they are somehow sharing the same fundamental. Okay, they are sharing the same fundamental. So Keynes argue that, okay, fiscal is more powerful, okay, because if you look back, the basis, okay, of the Keynes is always one government intervention to. So Keynes always believed that the fiscal policy is more powerful, okay, especially when interest rates are unresponsive. Okay, later we will see how, under what conditions that interest rates is actually becomes how interest rate we have discussed a lot, okay, about interest rate. We have so many kind of interest rate, but under what conditions that interest rate become less respond or not respond. Monetaries, on the other hand, believe that monetary policy dominates, okay, because changes in the money supply directly affect spending and output. Okay, so uh, this shows that what we have discussed in the balance sheet, okay, balance sheets of the central bank, especially, okay, so the ultimate focus in this monetary policy is to see, okay, the size and the changes of the stock of money supply. Okay, money supply is actually is the the key point, okay, how the implementations of the policy, the message of the policy can be transferred, okay, to the final objective. Okay, final objective is the output, okay, long run economic growth. Okay, so we're going to look, okay, the effectiveness, okay, between the argument between Keynes and monetaries, okay, under the frameworks of ISLM framework. Okay, so for example, now, okay, we are talking about fiscal policy. Okay, fiscal policy, and we are talking about expansionary of fiscal policy. Okay, expansionary can comes either when the government increase the government expenditure or the government reduce the tax. Okay, so that is the tools, and then this will shift, okay, the IS curve. Okay, will shift the IS curve to the right. Okay, so we shift the IS curve. So this is the ISLM framework, okay, showing the relationship, okay, between the interest rate on the y-axis and the output on the x-axis. Okay, since the expansionary of fiscal policy, okay, expansionary of fiscal policy, they say that the uh, shifts now, the fiscal policy uh, shift the IS curve to the right, okay, to the right. So the new IS curve, okay, for example, okay, and then the impact depend on how much interest rate rise in response. Okay, how much. So we can see that due to the new or the implementation of expansionary fiscal policy. Okay, so the new okay, the new interest rate is higher, okay, at this point. Okay, and in the same times, okay, the output also getting higher. Okay, so it seems like expansionary is to boost the economy. Okay, so it seems like the implementations of the fiscal policy on the right track, okay, because we able to produce more output, okay, more output, okay. And then next, okay, if LM is steep, the interest rate rise sharply, okay. So, and then when the interest rates become higher, it will follow by the crowding out LM curve. Over here, we say that it is in terms of symmetry position. Okay, symmetry. Okay, so now we can see that the changes also have the same size between interest rate and output. Okay, so now for example, okay, for example, the LM curve. Okay, let's see what is the outcome. Okay, when the LM curve is steep. Okay, LM curve is steep. Okay, so LM curve is steep. Okay, LM curve is steep. Okay, when LM curve is steep, we can see that the interest rate is higher, meaning that if the LM curve is steep, okay, the interest rate become higher, the output become lesser. Okay, the output become lesser. Okay, the output become, sorry, okay, the output, okay, the increase in terms of output become lesser or smaller. Okay, but the interest rate now become higher. Okay, the interest rate now become higher. So this actually, when interest rate getting higher and higher, it will welcome the effect of crowding out effect. Okay, crowding out effect means that when we increase government expenditure, reduce tax, we want people to spend. Okay, to spend. Okay, but if interest rate is getting higher and higher, so meanings that the cost of borrowing, okay, the cost of borrowing, the cost of doing as investment is become expensive. Okay, so people will not spend. Okay, so this also actually respond and reflected, okay, as the output become lesser. Okay, output become lesser. Okay, if the LM is steeper. Okay, LM steeper, let's put it in one color. Okay, one color, LM steeper. Put it in terms of, okay, yellow. Okay, is steeper. So now what happened if the LM curve, if, okay, put over here, change the color, dot dot. Okay, so now what happened if the LM curve become flatter? Okay, become flatter. Okay, we can see that the interest rate is getting smaller. Okay, interest rate is getting smaller. Um, interest rate is getting smaller. Okay, interest rate is getting smaller. Okay, from the initial one. Okay, from the initial one, why the output? Okay, the output become much bigger now. Okay, much bigger now. Okay, so now we can see that. Okay, how effective is the fiscal policy? Okay, is basically uh, depend on the position. Okay, positions of the LM curve. Okay, the ones that we have initial. Okay, we can see that it is on the symmetry positions. Okay, but if it's skewed to the left, okay, to the become steeper, so the fiscal policy, the expansionary of fiscal policy in our discussion, our example, become less uh, effective. Okay, while when the LM curve become flatter, okay, the implementations of the fiscal expansionary policy become more effective. Okay, because it avoid the crowding out effect. Okay, next, okay, the implementations of the monetary policy. Okay, again in our example, monetary expansion. Okay, monetary expansion. Okay, increase the money stock of money. Okay, leads LM curve to the right. Okay, LM curve to the right. If okay, again, okay, there is two a point over here. Either IS curve is steep or flat. Okay, now IF curve. Okay, now the IS curve. The LM curve shift to the right. Okay, LM curve shift to the right now. Okay, so what will be the outcome if the IS curve is steep? Okay, IS curve is okay. Before we go to the different whether the IS curve is steep or flat, okay, what is the outcome, okay, when the LM curve shift to the right? Okay, LM curve shift to the right. So okay, so okay, IS curve shift to the right. Okay, so interest rate going down, okay, more output. Okay, so that also under these conditions, the monetary expansionary monetary policy, okay, expansionary monetary policy seems to be good, okay, because we able to reduce the interest rate, okay, which will further boost the economic productivity, and it also reflects in terms of the higher output that we have. Okay, higher output that we have over here. Okay, now let's see if the IS curve is steep. Okay, IS curve is steep. Okay, first, okay, IS curve is steep. Okay, this the IS curve. Okay, so IS curve become steeper. Okay, if it become steeper, if the IS curve becomes steeper, we can see that the new interest rate is smaller. Okay, okay, but in the same time, the output produce also become smaller. Okay, become smaller. Okay, so if the IS curve is flat, is flatter, okay, flatter, okay, flatter, is flatter, okay, flatter like this. Okay, flatter, okay. Interest rate may have the same or smaller changes, become flatter, okay, flatter, flatter can be basically as compared to the steep, okay, the steeper one, okay, the flatter doing well, okay, it shows higher output, okay, with small changes of interest rate. Okay, so meanings that the the implementations of the policy, okay, leads to the stability of the interest rate. Okay, so in this monetary policy, okay, flatter is better, flatter IS curve, okay, and in this fiscal expansionary policy, okay, flatter LM curve is better, okay, show the more effective the implementation of the expansionary fiscal and monetary policy. Okay, so in exam, if the question asks, okay, one of the things that you should bear in your mind is the effectiveness of the implementations of any policy depend on the slope, okay, of the curve, okay, either IS or even LM curve. Okay, done. So next, Okay, this is just a summary, okay, of the effectiveness. Okay, Keynes say that fiscal policy is stronger, okay, when the LM is flat, okay, the same as we have. Money supply changes have little impact when interest rates are near zero. Okay, public investment directly boosts demand. Okay, public investment based on the interest rate. Okay, but one issues that bring by Keynes over here is that money supply changes have little impact when interest rate near zero. Okay, so we will see this more, okay, in the next slide. For the monetary view, okay, political policy is dominant in most real world situation. Okay, changes in money supply alter the portfolio, okay, portfolio where you park your asset. Fiscal policy is often offset by interest rate movement or expectation. Okay, so that is the crowding out effect. Okay, so now we will want to discuss next is what it means by the Keynes that money supply seems to have little impacts, okay, when interest rate near zero. Okay, we have one phenomena, okay, when the interest rate is near zero or equal zero. Okay, where we call that thing, okay, that situations, that event, okay, as a liquidity trap. So I believe that all of us have come across these terms. We have discussed it, liquidity trap, okay, liquidity trap in macro, okay. Liquidity trap occurs when interest rate fall to very low or near zero. Okay, so when interest rate comes to near zero, even though in terms of the return, okay, in terms of return, interest rate is also very low, okay, 3%, 4%, 5%, okay. So even though it is low, people try to actually look that as a good return, okay, and make any kind of investment, including saving, okay. But when it comes to near zero or zero, okay, so there is no motivation, okay, for the consumer household to park our asset, okay, in order to earn that return, okay. There's no reason. Then there we consider, okay, to hold more cash, okay. So and then what happens in liquidity trap? Okay, what happens? Interest rate are already extremely low, okay. So so basically, when we implement, okay, the monetary policy, okay, especially having an expansionary monetary policy is to boost the economy, okay, to boost the economy, okay. In order to boost the economy, we hope that the implementations will pressure down the interest rate, okay. So increasing the money supply does not lower interest rate further. Okay, of course, because already nearby zero. Because people expect uncertain economic condition or thinks rates won't go any lower, they prefer to hold cash. Okay, so if we look, okay, this situation in our money market, okay, so we have the money supply curve, okay, the vertical or perfectly inelastic curve, and then we have the money demand. So for this money demand curve, we have two segment, okay. The first segment is negatively slope, okay, and up to the certain extent, the money demand become perfectly elastic, okay, perfectly elastic. Okay, so as we are at the initial point, okay, money supply one over here, okay, the interest rate is 4.50. Okay, if we increase the money supply implementing the expansionary monetary policy, okay, so it will shift the money supply to the right, okay, and this cause, okay, the interest rate getting lower, okay, for 5.5 to 4%. Okay, so as a result also the more money supply, okay, the quantity of money is getting higher, okay, throughout the economic circulation. And this is what we want to do in order to boost the economic progress, economic productivity, economic activities, okay. And we keep on doing or implementing the expansionary monetary policy, okay, to have this kind of effect, okay. But when we keep doing that in order to pressure down the interest rate, it comes the lower points of the interest rate, okay. For example, over here is 2%. So for example, after money supply fall, if we implementing more or next expansionary monetary policy, so the curve, okay, MS5 will be on the flat segment of this money demand, okay, flat segment, the perfectly elastic curve of money demand, okay. So if we implementing monetary policy, okay, especially monetary policy, okay, so it will not having any effect, okay, because interest rate is now fixed or become stagnant, okay, at this level. Okay, so now, so that's why even though we implementing next, especially monetary policy, interest rate will fix up at that level of liquidity trap, okay, and then investment does not increase, okay. Of course, it will give no effect, okay, to the cost of borrowing, okay, as we have the fix or the interest rate is remain unchanged. So what is the outcome? Okay, so if we are under the liquidity trap condition, okay, implementing monetary policy, okay, lead us to no effect, okay, as shows in this diagram. Okay, if we are here, okay, M as a zero, so in order to implementing expansionary monetary policy or contractionary monetary policy, if we are still in this zone, okay, in these zones of the horizontal or perfectly elastic money demand curve, okay, we have no effect, okay, since the interest rate have no changes, okay. So under these circumstances, okay, fiscal policy seems to be stronger, okay, since monetary policy does not stimulate spending. Keynes argue that government spending becomes the main tools to boost demand. Okay, public investment directly increase aggregate demand, helping the economy escape from the liquidity trap. Okay, so under the liquidity trap, monetary policy seems to be paralyzed. Okay, so the only hopes that we have is to rely on the fiscal policy, okay, to do something in order, especially to boost the economy. Okay, so here is the simulation. Okay, so in the ISLM curve, okay, so the LM curve, okay, will become horizontal, okay, and then come out with the ordinary, okay. So LM curve also have the two segment, okay, since we are under the liquidity trap. Okay, so under the liquidity trap, monetary policy seems to be not function. So we need to rely on the fiscal policy. If the fiscal policy that can make the changes. Okay, so where we come up with the expansionary money fiscal policy. Okay, so we can see over that the IS curve will shift to the right. Okay, to the right. So the intersection between the IS and LM curve, okay, indicates that at the same level of interest rate, okay, but better output. Okay, better output. So actually this also is a situations where especially fiscal policy does not comes with the crowding out effect. Okay, because interest rate is fixed under the liquidity trap. Okay, so this also makes fiscal policy become even more powerful, because previously under the normal condition, the the expansionary fiscal policy comes, okay, with the crowding out effect, but here there's no crowding out issue. Okay, the government increased spending. Okay, it increased the total demand of goods and services. Okay, so when people start to spend, okay, because of the expansionary fiscal policy, it will also increase the demand for money. Okay, increase the demand for money. Okay, increase demand for money will actually pressure up, okay, the interest rate. Okay, interest rate. So when interest rate going up, okay, it will reduce the investment. So again, okay, it may take, okay, again we come to the crowding out effect. Okay, but it may take some times. Okay, so from this situation people will enjoy, okay, enjoy spend, enjoy to consume. Okay, maybe until certain level. Okay, when there is a pressure highly demanded on the money. Okay, because people start to spend, and then it will pressure up the interest rate. At least there is some space, okay, for the fiscal policy to work out, okay, to become very effective before the cycle comes back to the crowding out effect. Okay, crowding out effect due to the highly demanded on the quantity of money. Okay, so yes, okay, it become effective. Okay, effective tools. Okay, fiscal policy under the liquidity trap, but as usual, we need to control the policy. Okay, so in this case, if we not control, is going to overheat the economy as well. Okay, so the crowding out effect events. Okay, we have two kind of crowding out. First is financial. Okay, higher rate discourage private borrowing, and then real crowding out, government spending replace private sector activities. Okay, so since governments come up with the expansionary fiscal policy, so the government increase the expenditure, government expenditure increase. Okay, it causes the crowding out effect where interest rate going up, right? So this will also uh, going not to courage, okay, not to courage the private sector, okay, to spend, okay, to spend, because the cost of borrowing is expensive now. So meanings that any project is become very costly. Okay, so when worst come to worst, everything will goes back to the governments. Okay, so the government have to provide everything. Okay, so that we call it as a real crowding out. Just the phenomena uh, during the ASEAN 1997 financial crisis. Okay, so at the moment, the economics are not doing well. Okay, so people have less money. Okay, so what happened is that all the people are now referred to the general government hospital. Okay, no one go to the private hospital. Okay, because people have no money. So the burden, okay, is not really reflect the situations, but just to show that, okay, the real crowding outs where the government spending replace, okay, the private sector. So people are shifting to the government's health expenditure. Okay, so the government health expenditure increase while the private sector, okay, under the crisis, okay, so it's even more a dying situation for the private hospital. So what we can say that, okay, the implementations of the fiscal policy during the liquidity trap, okay, will also cause inflation, okay, highly demand for money, okay, which will cause higher interest rate, which also comes the crowding out effect. Okay, so what we need is to have a precautionary policy or action. Okay, okay, we need to adjust, okay, the positions of this money market in order to offset, okay, the fiscal stimulus package or fiscal stimulus policy. Okay, so these the implications that we need to bear in mind, okay, under the liquidity trap. Okay, okay, guys, so far any problems, any matters, guys? We have 19 so far. Any question? No question. Only two thumbs up. Okay. The rest, I hope that you guys are also okay. Okay. Just let me know if I go too fast or too fast lah, too slow. I think it's always okay. If you have any question, just interject. Okay. Okay. So okay. Next. Okay. Next. Okay. What policy cannot do? Okay, fine tuning is impossible. Okay, fine tuning means trying to actually implement the policy at the right time with the right measure. Okay, at the right time with the right measure. The right measure meanings that we know how much spending that we need to do, or how much increments of the interest rate, or how much stock of money that need to be injected, okay, throughout the economic circulations, okay, which is some things that is really out of anyone's knowledge and informations. Okay, even though we have developed a lot of techniques, a lot of econometrics measurements, including forecasting. Okay, if forecasting, we can forecast exact figure, exact size, exact times that we need, so our life will become more and more uh, better. Okay, but it's not always necessary. Okay, we develop the forecasting, it's just a guidelines. Okay, it's not the exact figures that we need to implement. Okay, so why is very difficult to finding tune. Okay, because it's a time lags. Okay, time lags. Okay, for example, if we want to implement, okay, to increase the government expenditure, okay, so when we implement, okay, when we make the announcement, the monetary authority make the announcement, it's not necessary that the spending, okay, for example, the spending or to increase the money supply uh, is directly uh, taking into action, okay. It takes some times, okay. It takes some times in order to inject the money to the economic agent, okay, economic agent, in order to react, okay, in order to react to the economic output, okay. It takes time, and we are not even know, okay, how much is the size of the policy that should be implemented, and how fast is going to react, okay. That is the one problem. Another thing is that uncertainty. Okay, uncertainty. We are not so sure. Okay, when we, for example, we indicates that now we're having inflation. Okay, so now we reduce the money supply. Okay, we reduce the money supply since the first we are not even know. Okay, the size. Okay, the times when that effect is going to works. Okay, so suddenly we feel that, okay, we are having a recession, okay, a lot of uncertainty in order to implement the policy, okay. That's the second things, okay. The third one is risk of instability, okay. So from the first one, we are not so sure when the effect is going to uh, work. And then the second is the uncertainty in terms of the event or economic phenomena. Okay, so this leads us to implement or to make the announcement different kind of measure, okay, in a short time, or in a nearby we make another announcement. Okay, it's not necessary that first we say that increase the interest rate because the inflation, and so suddenly we found that we are under the recession, we reduce the interest rate, okay. That is using the same policy, okay. Maybe when we say that inflation, we increase the interest rate, and then we feel that we are having a recession, we boost the expenditure, okay. So the fluctuating, okay, in terms of the implementing the policy, okay, will make the economics become volatile, okay, volatile, and shows that the instability of the economic progress. Okay, so it's not an easy task, okay, to make this kind of prediction and implementation. Okay, a lot of things that we need to take into account. We cannot necessarily that say that, for example, during the COVID-19, okay, when we lockdowns, no economic progress, right? So the governments are keep on pumping money, okay, by using a stimulus COVID package, right? But giving a lot of money to the peoples, okay. But we are not so sure, okay, how big will be the effect. But the money is very big, of course, because it is a lockdown, okay. But uh, we are not so sure, okay. So suddenly, if we once we open the economy, it will become inflation. We are not so sure, okay. But from the experience, okay, even though we pump a lot of money, once the economics we full swing the economy, we open the economy, we still have the recession, okay. We can see that unemployment rate is increased, okay. Of course, after a long time, okay, to shut down the economy, of course, when you open, it's not directly people will hire more workers, okay. It takes times, okay, in order to increase the output, and then people will ask for more workers, okay. It takes time, even though stimulus package is implemented, we still under the recessionary pressure. Okay, So how we going to implement the policy? Okay, the first school of thought say that we should go for discretionary policy. Okay, discretionary policy means that uh, budi bicara, right? Discretionary policy, budi bicara. So means that we need to know, okay, what is the situation. Okay, we study the situation and then we come up with the policy. Okay, so that school of thought is people the argument is that yes, it's good you study the case first before you implement the right policy. However, okay, so this will cause delay in terms of the effectiveness of the implementation policy. Okay, so that is the worst part of having this discretionary policy. Okay, if we rely on this discretionary policy, uh, one of the advantage, not really an advantage in terms of the economic point of view, okay, but we can make the interventions, okay, what we think right, okay, but on the other hand, this will be utilized, okay, by the politician, okay, to 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 use this kind of approach, okay, to show that the economy is good, okay, particularly during the general elections, okay, just to have the feel good, okay, the feel good sensation, okay, during the general election, okay. But however, this will cause more trouble to the economy, okay, like Malaysia now, okay. They try to give a lot as we approaching the next general elections, a lot of things, okay. The teachers are not allowed to go to works, okay, to have meeting physically during the school break, okay. And then they're going to pay a high the increments of the salary for the government sector, okay. So more kind of feel goods, okay, will be given, okay, as the general elections coming, okay. So this will actually uh, distract the economic progress, okay. So that's why monetaries they come out with their own approach, okay. They believe that discretionary policy having disadvantages, okay. So we need to go for the rules, okay, rules approach, okay, rules approach. Okay, this is fiscal. Okay, we jump one slide first, okay. Rules approach, okay, so meanings that we set, okay, like the Friedman, okay, Friedman say k% rules where the money supply grows at constant rate, okay, equal to the long-term growth of GDP. So meaning that we want to implement the policy we set, okay, every quarter increase by 2%. Okay, so the the policy will work every quarter increase 2%. Okay, in order to maintain the growth, okay, the expansion process of the economy. Okay, we don't have to wait for any economy event, okay, and study the event and then take the necessary action. So that is discretionary, where the monetary say that it is very time consume, okay. So they believe that the rules, okay, the rules are better, okay, the rules approaches are better, reduce uncertainty. Of course, you are constantly increase the money supply, okay, for example, prevent policymakers from making mistakes, okay. So meanings that policymakers they have studied, okay, what they want based on their forecasting, their projection, okay. So they maintains the policy, They anchor inflation expectation. Okay, so having a rules approach also can be like a anchor, okay, for any unexpected event, okay, like especially about the politician, okay. So when they want to have the feel good sensation, okay, so the anchor of monetary policy can somehow equalize, okay, in order to ensure the stability of the economy. Okay, so there is two school of thought, one Keynes, another one monetarist. Keynes for fiscal, monetarists or for sure go for monetary policy, and then the monetarists go for rules. Okay, Keynes, okay, go for the discretionary approach. Okay, so we go back over here. Okay, so the monetaries suggest that, okay, the fiscal policy, okay, since they argue that there's a lot of weaknesses in terms of the discretionary policy. They believe that it should be used, okay, to resource allocation and income distribution. Okay, so it is to ensure that the resources are allocated to the productive sector, okay, meaning that to avoid any misuse, and then also to work as a mechanism to reduce income inequality. Okay, income inequality is to closer the gap, okay, the gap between the richer and the poorer. Okay, one of the mechanisms they are using now is to have a minimum wage. Okay, but minimum wage comes with the very costly effect. Okay, it will affect the standard of living. Okay, as we heard now, more below 40, medium 40, right? More M40 become B40, and more T20 become M40. Okay, so because the cost of living is now become higher. Okay, because the core the core of the economy, okay, the price, one of the core economics indicator is the inflation. When you change the price, okay, the price, even though you change the income, okay, but actually the chain effect comes to the price, comes to the inflation. Okay, so it affect the standard of living and also the cost of living. Okay, so these actually summarize, okay, between the rules and discretion. Okay, so one of the examples of rule is the K%, okay, by the K% rules by the Friedman. Okay, Friedman is one of the monetarists, okay, godfather. Okay, next let's see a few point, okay, a few point of arguments between rules and discretionary policy. Okay, rules reduce uncertainty and policy mistake, as we have mentioned. Okay, uh, we implement some things that by following the rules. Every quarter increase 2% of money supply. So if that is the rules and it is fixed up and it is implemented wisely, okay, so it shows, okay, the environment, the stability environments of economics. Okay, so when everything's executed, okay, as planned, okay, it shows, okay, the credibility and the stability of the economics. Okay, so this will actually providing, okay, a good message, okay, to the investor. Okay, this country, they are credible, okay, in terms of the implementations of the policy. Okay, what they stated they are implemented. Okay, so it's a safe for me to invest in these countries. Okay, so next, okay, rules also can become the anchor as we mentioned. Okay, politician, okay, may pressure central bank to boost the economy before election. Okay, so when it comes to the election, it will come up with a feel good moment. Okay, feel good sensation. Okay, so that will make everything seems to be good. Okay, even though when you pressure the economy to by boosting the economy, okay, so actually it will burst after certain point. Okay, after certain point it will burst. Okay, if we have these rules, okay, so it will somehow equalize and stabilize. Okay, so for example, over here, rules provide a stability. Okay, so if we go for the inflation targeting, okay, inflation targeting or any targetings that policies that you come across, okay, so basically the most popular is the inflation targeting. So meaning that when you target 2% of inflation, okay, so you have to work to achieve that target. Okay, so you need to take all the necessary action. Inflation targeting 2%. So inflation comes from the price come from the demand come from the stock of money, right? When people have a lot of money, a lot of demand, a lot of higher of pressure on the price, right? So you need to control that. You need to achieve that. If you can achieve your target, you declare, okay, Malaysian, we declare that we have inflation target, okay, inflation targeting of 2%. Okay, and then people will start monitor, especially the investor. Okay, they will start to monitor whether when you set the target, is it achievable, or you just set but the outcome, what is the outcome? Is it your inflation is narrowed down within the bound of your target, or you set the target but you fail to put any efforts in order to narrow down your inflation. Okay, to have these rules, okay, these kinds of rules, it assists, okay, the target, okay, in order to achieve any targets. And then for the discretionary policy, okay, so it's allow flexibility, okay, flexibility. Okay, during 2008 global financial crisis and COVID-19 pandemic, central bank used discretionary policy, okay, to reduce interest rate and increase money supply, okay, to prevent economic collapse. Okay, so as mentioned that uh, they study first the economic event and then they implemented. Okay, if I'm not so sure the rest of part of countries of the world, but in Malaysia, okay, uh, it seems to be late, okay, for the government to come up with the stimulus COVID package, okay, because at the moment it's lockdown, okay, maybe it's a kind of maybe most of us first experience, okay, where we cannot move physically. Okay, maybe there's also a kind of restriction for the policymakers, for the politician, in order to come out with that any solution, okay. So they study first and then they come what, okay, but even though it's a time lags decision, okay, while people are locked down, people are running out of resources, okay, income, there's no job, okay, so they cannot spend, they cannot buy food, okay, even though you are allowed to buy food with a certain point of time, even though everything can be delivered, okay, but not everyone are allowed to make any physical movement. Okay, and then improve over time. Okay, so this also actually because of the flexibility. Okay, flexibility allow us to implement the right policy. Okay, but it is time lags. Okay, and it's allow us as this discretionary, actually they are sharing the features of where governments can make the interventions when it is necessary. Okay, so actually if you read through, okay, the arguments, okay, between the rules and discretionary, okay, of course Keynes go for discretionary, monetaries goes for the rules. Okay, but at the end of the arguments, okay, uh, they believe that the combinations of these two sets of approach, okay, is a must. Okay, because any approach comes with their own advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so uh, if we fix up the rules, okay, increase money supply by 2%, for example, and so suddenly it comes the inflation. So we cannot, even though the rules is fixed up, okay, so we maintain that, but now we can use the discretionary policy in order to equalize or stabilize or to overcome the inflation. Okay, but and then we need to look, okay, inflation, how much is the inflation, what is the effects of the increase of 2% money supply across every quarter. Okay, so then we can make a decision how much maybe a spending, okay, that we need to reduce, or how much tax that we need to increase, okay, in order to overcome the inflations. Okay, but yes, I also agree that, okay, this discretionary seems to be good because you make like you having an accident. Okay, you have a cut, and then the doctor will monitor and take the necessary actions, right? Which we believe that the best. But if you don't have the cut and then suddenly you ask the doctor, if anything, any cuts on my hand, what should I do? Doctor can only give you a general suggestion, okay, a general informations, okay, because they are not even know how deep is your cut, how big is your cut, okay, what are the cause of the cut, maybe the ones that cause your cut have poison, so maybe different treatments. Okay, so the treatment for the economics best is after the occurrence of the economic events. Okay, but it takes times, and the delay, okay, the delay is there. Okay, so the combinations, okay, of course, every times the combinations between these two, okay, uh, even if you go for the arguments between classical and Keynes, okay, about the prolong of the economic depression. Okay, so if we rely on the classical, we do nothing. Okay, that's why caused the prolong of the Great Depression. And then comes the Keynes. Okay, the government intervention is important. Okay, so the government interventions and this discretionary policy, actually they are sharing the same fundamental. Okay, guys, any question? So in exam, so in this topic, what kind of question can be? Okay, first is the effectiveness of the fiscal and fiscal and monetary policy under the ISLM framework. Okay, okay, and then it start the arguments. Okay, between the rules and discretionary policy. Okay, so at most, any two question, the effectiveness of the fiscal and monetary policy under the ISLM curve, and then the arguments. Okay, the arguments. A lot of things lah, between discretionary and rules. Okay, maybe the question can give you economic situation, and then they ask you, okay, briefly discuss how the necessary action can be taken. Okay, based on the rules and discretionary approach, or the approach suggested or argued by the Keynes and monetaries. Okay, so maybe the question will not direct forward, okay, but you need to trace out, okay, what is the exact information, okay, required by the question. Okay, guys, any question? Have you come across about this rules discretionary policy, and also the effectiveness of the fiscal and monetary based on the slope of the ISLM curve?
Yes.
Only about 19, 20 out of 31, okay? Any question, guys?
No.
So next week also we have online session, right? Okay, later I will confirm, okay, what times is our class, okay, since you guys are not available, okay, based on the pools shoot by Uzen, okay. So I will try to fix up the class within these 3 hours, okay. Later I will confirm. So Uzen, is it Uzen here? Please do remind me, Uzen, okay, within these 3 hours, okay, at least lah, at least try. I try to allocate like 1.5, okay, because maybe this is a holiday season, okay. I'm not so sure how many of you are actually involved in the holiday trip, vacation, and so forth, and how many of you are not, okay. Okay, okay, can we end our session? Always Adika, okay, Amna, new Adika, Amna, okay. The rest, are you guys are here or you are doing something else at the back? Okay. Okay, so I give you hints and clues, okay, for the final exam. Okay, this is a part of the final exam. Okay. Okay, so with that, we end our session. Thank you very much for joining the session, and assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Doktor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, welcome.